Welcome to Liberty Alert with Gregory Seltz, sponsored by our friends at the Lutheran Center for Religious Liberty here in Washington, D.C., a program that cuts through the chaos and confusion in the culture today by talking two-kingdom citizenship, bold, biblical principles for a robust, public Christian life. And now your host, Dr. Gregory Seltz.
Good day, Washington, D.C. I'm Gregory Seltz. Welcome to our program, The Liberty Alert, where every week we try to cut through the noise and take on the issues, especially the public issues that matter to people of faith. We're privileged to have on the program today Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler of Missouri's 4th District. And where I've gotten to know her well, especially is in her leadership on the Values Action Team, the congressional side, and she's a tremendous leader for the things that we at the LCRL hold dear: religious liberty, the sanctity of life, the defense of marriage, and of course, educational freedom. Welcome, Congresswoman Hartzler.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, listen, 2 of the 4 things I just mentioned, I want to talk to you about today. First of all, the sanctity of life, and then secondly, education, because I know you have some legislation that you're putting forward as well. First, the sanctity of life. Dobbs, the end of Roe v. Wade. Why is this vital to our nation going forward?
Well, every life is valuable and has a God-given purpose, and that's the most important thing, that we need to protect and defend life. And this decision, Roe versus Wade back in 1973, was a wrong decision. It was an overreach by unelected judges that should never have occurred. And the court last week rightly made the decision that this really isn't a right under the Constitution, and it needs to be left up to the people, the elected representatives of the people. And they gave the power back, which that is, so unusual and historic that one of the 3 branches of government says, "Hey, we've got too much power, we're going to give it back."
Right.
But the bottom line is that more lives are going to be saved now, and there are many, many states that have already passed laws, including here in Missouri, that we are a pro-life state, and there will not be abortion here unless the life of the mother is in jeopardy. And we are embracing the mother in this process. There are multiple pregnancy care centers throughout our state, and standing ready to support every woman in an unplanned pregnancy situation, giving her the support to make sure that that baby is brought to life, and helping her in her parenting, or if she wants to make a parenting decision and for her child through adoption. There are other ways to handle these situations, and I'm excited for the lives that are going to get to live. We've lost 63 million Americans at the hands of abortion since 1973. And my heart just breaks for wondering what plan God had for each one of those children. Who knows, we maybe have had a cure for Alzheimer's or cancer by now. We don't know what contributions they could have given to us. And so now more babies will be able to live, and it'll be good for all of us.
Right. And, one of the things that often gets thrown our way, and by the way, we've been a part of this all the way back to, I guess, the early 80s. My wife, she served in clinics in New York City. We worked with Cardinal O'Connor in our work in New York City. We've been on the streets of this, and we've seen the damage that it's done to our culture, to women, to men. I think the one argument that always gets brought up, and it really bothers me, it's that somehow pro-life is chauvinistic. And really, if you think about it, I think pro-choice or abortion is the most chauvinistic thing. What happens to women is they're either abandoned or they're supposed to get an abortion, and the guy says, that's all, I have no responsibility. I guess the point I'm saying is strong women are pro-life, and we've got to take back that narrative. And as a strong woman, this is a movement led by women.
You're so right. And I think women know that the devastation that occurs after an abortion.
Right.
And many people know women who made that choice. And like you pointed out, many times they are coerced into doing it by a boyfriend. They think they have no choice. They're not aware of the Crisis Pregnancy Center or the Pregnancy Help Center in the area. And they regret it their whole life. And studies have shown that women who have had abortions, and it could be as high as 1 in 4 women have had one, but they have increased depression, mental health, anxiety, problems the rest of their life,
Right.
guilt. And of course, those things can be overcome through the power of Jesus Christ. And many women have received that healing from it, but
Right.
they are in some ways victims of this abortion industry as well. That has made a lot of money off of them. And now they're going to be hopefully supported and be able to bring that baby to term if they have an unplanned pregnancy. And I've talked to several men, though, as well, who have grieved their whole life for their
Absolutely.
role that they played in abortion. They may have
Mhm.
paid for one or took their girlfriend to an abortion clinic. And so, abortion ultimately is death. And people know that deep down. And many times they try to cover that up through, other means. And sometimes it comes out as anger and rage that we see with people, marching. But I think ultimately their heart needs healed.
Well, and you're right. And I think what we've seen, if you really take the notion that it's not a life, if you say it's not a life, there's a callousness that builds both in men and women. And like I said, I've seen your leadership. We're trying to reinstill life, reinstill the sanctity of all life. Men take their responsibility seriously. Women take their responsibility seriously. How do we start to reinstill this? So the Supreme Court said, okay, it's not constitutional. But now, we've had a culture that actually had a veneer of respectability over abortion for over 50 years. That veneer is gone, but now the real debate begins. So how do we reinstate that? I know your job as a Congresswoman is not. I mean, it's our job of the church, the family, that as well. But how do we reinstill going forward from your perspective?
Well, the church and the family and the local communities is key to this, certainly, and reaching every man and woman with the love of Christ, and let them know that a life has a plan and a purpose for
Right.
them. But in Congress, we're going to continue this battle. I have sponsored the defund Planned Parenthood bill for several years,
Right.
and I'm going to continue that fight because they do not deserve a dime of our taxpayer dollars. I also am the sponsor of the Women's Right to Know Act. And we know that with this decision, it's up to the states as well as potentially elected representatives in Washington, D.C. to make these decisions. But right now, we have several states who still are promoting abortion, even so much that some companies are paying for people to go there and putting it in their benefit package and have an abortion. It's unbelievable
Right.
what is occurring. But that's why we could pass a law at the federal level saying that women have the right to know about the health ramifications and be able to see an ultrasound and to know these things before they make that decision. I'm also co-sponsor of other bills that we're going to continue to move forward with that says the Born Alive Infant Protection Act. If a child is born alive during an abortion, they deserve the same health care and emergency treatment as a baby preborn, from a family who wants to keep that baby down the hallway. I'm also co-sponsor of the pain capable bill that's saying there's no abortion in America if there is the baby once they can feel pain. But I'm also the co-sponsor of the Life at Conception Act and the Heartbeat Bill, and which says no abortions after that. So we're going to continue to fight at the federal level for life, but we also need to fight at the local level and at the state level. All of this is going to be turned over a lot of to state decisions as well. And I'll mention something else people may not be aware of, that 40% of the abortions in our country right now are occurring through what we call chemical abortions,
Right.
which is a pill regimen. There are two different pills that a pregnant woman takes. The first pill stops the baby and from being able to be continue to be implanted in the uterus. And it comes away from the uterus, it separates from it. And then the second pill forces the body to expel the baby. And it's a horrific thing for a woman to go through on her own in home by herself. It is very painful. It can be very, very dangerous. Women have died using this. And so there's also legislation trying to prohibit using the postal service to send out these pills, which are certainly cause the death of a baby, but they can cause the death of the mother as well.
And like you said, I think that's one of the things that people are starting to wake up to, that the pro-abortion movement, it's actually using women to its advantage too. And there's all kinds of downsides for the mother as well as for the child. Obviously, the child loses its life. So when you said that, it just brought back to me, people don't realize that Europe, I think it's like 12 to 14 weeks tops all throughout Europe. I mean, our abortion laws in some of our states, and even the one that they tried to pass in Congress, would have made us akin to China and North Korea, how we value life. And that's just not American. Especially when we need to reinstill the fact that each life is important, the life of the unborn, the life of the aged, the life in between, valuing marriage, valuing sex as something between committed people who see babies not as a medical emergency, but as a blessing. I mean, there's a whole lot of work of getting back to where we need to be on this issue. That's for sure. Now, folks, can you listen to all the stuff that she's sponsoring? I mean, when I think about those, the pain capable bill, the born alive bill, I don't know why anyone would vote against those things. I would love to see more of those come to a vote, but that's what Congresswoman Hartzler is all about. And she's been a really staunch leader in the Congress on this. And we pray that some of those bills actually, again, come to the vote and actually show where people are in our Congress and in our Senate. Now on to a second issue. And I know this one's really important to you because you were a teacher, correct?
That's right.
Okay, so education is a big deal, and it's obviously a huge deal in our country today. And I just want to let you know, we have 2,200 schools, we have 7 universities, and so education is huge in the Lutheran Church, especially across the country. As a teacher, talk a little bit again about why parental responsibility and authority is so huge. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that you have posited.
Well, the parent is the best arbiter of their child's education, and whether they choose to homeschool that child or make a decision and put it in a Christian school or have the public school, they are the one that has the greatest influence as well as a stake in their child's education. And the thought that some of our schools across the country are saying that parents need to sit down and be quiet and that the teachers are the experts is really, really concerning. And especially when parents started exercising their right to speak up at school board meetings, which is the representative body that's elected by them to oversee the school district, when our federal government started calling them terrorists, domestic terrorists,
Exactly.
and trying to sic the FBI on them.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Right.
Unbelievable. And I'm just so proud of the parents who are running and have run successfully for school board and taking their schools back. I've said for too long that we've been on the defense and we need to go on the offense. I wrote a book several years ago that's available on Amazon called Running God's Way, Step-by-Step to Successful Political Campaign, trying to encourage people of faith to run successfully for office at all levels, and especially at the local level of school board and county office and city council, where many of our cultural battles are taking place. And too many times we wait until something happens that we don't like, and then we all go en masse to the meeting and try to get them to reverse their vote instead of being proactive and getting our people there on that board, making those decisions to begin with. So I applaud those who are stepping up and doing that, but we've got to take back our schools. They should be teaching, as you have said, which is a quote of mine.
Yeah.
We should be teaching the ABCs, not the CRTs.
Not the CRTs. Yeah, exactly. Well, and go and let me jump in too and just say when you talk about these things, there is a moral framework to good education. There is a battle there, and that's actually where this battle is at. There's a secularization coming into our schools, a racialization that's being hoisted on our schools, a sexualization that's being hoisted on our schools, and people are saying, wait a minute, true wisdom comes when I am educated within a moral framework that actually is correct, and the Judeo-Christian one has serviced this country so well for so long. And like you said, let's at least get back to making sure they can think properly. And then we'll get into the philosophies that we're talking about. So go ahead. Yeah, the ABCs, not the CRT.
Well, I'm concerned that our kids are falling behind other countries' students in their reading and science and math and these basic things that schools are supposed to be teaching. We are falling behind in that. And I think part of it is because some schools, and I don't want to paint all schools this way or all teachers, because I know many great teachers and many great public school teachers as well as certainly Christian school teachers. But there are some out there, and we know it, who have a mission of indoctrination, and they think it's their job to indoctrinate and change students' opinions to their worldview. And this sexualization that you talk about is extremely concerning. The thought that we're encouraging kids in some places to choose their own gender once they get to school, change their gender, and not tell the parents. This is ludicrous. The parents are in control of their children and need to be involved in all these very important decisions. The school shouldn't be going behind their back, changing the child's gender, affirming that, encouraging that. I mean, this is serious stuff, and that's why I've been banned from my Twitter account, my campaign Twitter account, because I simply said women's sports should be for women, not men pretending to be women.
Right.
And we have this move now to allow biological males to participate in girls' sports, but the Biden administration has issued a rule to change so every Title IX school has to consider for discrimination, not discriminate based on sexual orientation and gender identity, which has huge ramifications for girls' locker rooms, bathrooms, sports, scholarships, you name it. It's very, very concerning, and it's going to be to the detriment of our girls if we don't stand up and speak up for them.
Yeah, again, like you just pointed out again, women suffer. These are supposed to be these egalitarian notions, and everyone's supposed to profit from this. But really what happens is as our girls are actually hoisted on this again, and they're the ones who are most vulnerable. They're the ones who are now going to lose opportunities, but they're also going to be open to things that we used to protect them from. And I think that's what the sexualization stuff is all about as well. And that's why the abortion movement's connected to this. Pro-life and all this stuff is undergirding a different way of going at these things. And not only ABCs, but then understanding that there's a dignity that we need to teach our children. There's a moral framework that actually deals with a lot of these issues and puts them in their proper place. And all of that should be part of a good education. I don't know if you think about it this way, but, I used to get involved in these issues a lot. And I said, look, if the state wants to involve itself in our educational system, that's fine, but they should limit themselves to good civics. I mean, that's what they should be concerned about. They should be concerned that we have a good civics program and people know how to be good citizens. That's the state's involvement. The rest of it comes from a different place. It comes from free people. It comes from church people. It comes from moral people and people who strive for the truth. We don't need the state to dictate those kind of things to us. How did they get a hold of all of this stuff?
Yeah, it has been going on for a long time. I think ever since the 60s, when they took prayer out of the schools and said, no, we don't want to have anything to do with God. We're going to be 100% secular. And then, our universities have been taken over by liberals or socialists, and that's what's educating our teachers. And as a teacher, I'll say all the teachers I know have a big heart. I mean, they're there because they care about kids and they want to make a difference. But some with a liberal mindset and who don't have a biblical worldview think it's their mission, and they think it's good to be open and encourage and affirm kids in all kinds of strange ways. But that's not compassionate to encourage a child to switch their gender. It ultimately is dangerous. And if they have a sex change operation, which many liberals support them doing, and when they're a young person, I think that's child abuse.
Right.
We know that 85 to 90% of these young people will ultimately settle in their biological sex once they get through puberty in their teenage years. It's a tumultuous time. They're confused. But if you affirm them and encourage them to have surgeries to mutilate and change their bodies, it affects them the rest of their life. They never will be able to have kids. I mean, it's just wrong. So I think it's misplaced compassion that's actually hurting kids, and they need to realize that and reverse course. And
like you said, teachers and parents, I think, are all on the same page on this. Like you said, there's a bureaucracy that's bigger. That actually, there's a book called Get Out Now, where two teachers are saying, we're trying to actually teach the ABCs. We're trying to actually do what we were trained to do. And there's these challenges and these other forces that are hoisting these things on through curriculum and things like that. So there's a lot of teachers who are trying to fight back as well. And that's the point. It's what's best for our kids. And I think the teachers in concert with parents who really care about their kids above and beyond even education, that's where the solution's going to be. The one thing too, I think you were just pointing this out. There's a whole lot of issues. And I don't think, we just had some issues over July 4th again, where violence in our culture and people are immediately going to things like guns and things like that. But we're seeing a callousness in culture. And that callousness has to come from someplace. And I think it's when you're taught that you're a biological accident, when you're taught there's no purpose in life, when you're taught that, you're not taught to be wise anymore, manners and morals are actually somehow suspect now. It shouldn't shock us that we create people who don't value life, who don't even value their own life, and don't see any purpose in life. In pro-life and a good education, that's what that's meant to instill. And so, again, in your leadership, what are some of the things, even in education, where we can actually get back to where our kids come out of our high schools and schools with a sense of who they are, with a confidence in who they can be?
Well, that is so true. And, I believe that education should be mainly at the local level and the state level, and the federal government shouldn't be passing laws dictating what should be done at our schools. But I do know that we have 160 military bases across our country that have schools on those bases. And so Congress is kind of like the school board for them. So I
didn't know that.
Yeah. We oversee the curriculum there and have jurisdiction, kind of like the local school board. So I have introduced the No CRT for our Military Kids Act, because I think critical race theory is damaging for every student in America, and I don't want any of them to be taught that our nation is a racist nation and we should be ashamed of it, and that their destiny is determined by their skin color. But yet the thought that might be taught to a child of a military member whose mom or dad is, fighting for our country and potentially giving their life for our country is just abominable. Right. So that's why I have, proactively introduced this legislation to make sure that doesn't happen on our military bases. And I'm going to continue to fight for quality education for our kids and encourage that to happen at the state and local level as well.
Well, our chaplains will thank you. We have a big chaplaincy in our church as well, and they will appreciate that. And by the way, I've been in urban ministry for 25 years, and Black liberation theology, which is foundational to CRT and things like that. It doesn't liberate. It doesn't liberate the principles of individual empowerment and education and self-discipline. Those are the things that liberate, and a good education will help kids of all ethnicities accomplish and make it in this country. And so, like you said, just making this a racial issue and teaching that some people can make it and some people can't, that's the wrong way to go. So parental choice, I know that charter schools, African-American parents and Hispanic parents and even poor, white kids, parents, they want this. They want that opportunity to get their kids a good education, and they sure don't want to see the racialization happen as well. Again, I just want to say thank you. You are on top of so many of these things, and I learned something today too. I didn't know that you handled all that on the bases, and I will make sure that I pass that word along too. But thank you for your leadership. And how can people get to know more about you? Do you want to give your website here before you go?
Sure. Hartzler.house.gov is my official website where you can learn more about the bills I'm introducing and the work we're doing. But also VickyHartzler.com is my campaign website. I am running for the U.S. Senate in Missouri. I would love to have everybody's support, and they can go there and learn more. VickyHartzler.com.
And wherever you serve, whether it's in the Senate or the House, we will be proud to be there and support you. Thank you for your leadership. Thanks for tuning in today. To get to know our LCRL DC work better, check out our website at lcrlfreedom.org. Till next time, God bless you always. I'm Gregory Seltz. Have a great week.
You've been listening to Liberty Alert with Dr. Gregory Seltz, Executive Director of the Lutheran Center for Religious Liberty in Washington, D.C. This program has been brought to you by the Lutheran Center for Religious Liberty.